So let's go to Darbuka, since it's this, like I mentioned, it's kind of related. And you can hold the flex drum like the Darbuka. Darbuka is an Arab drum, so it's used in Lebanon, in Iran, you know, what we call Middle East, but they would say Arab nations. And this drum, even though it looks similar to the djembe, it's not related to the djembe. Djembe is wood, djembe is a mortar. This drum was traditionally clay. It goes all the way back to Egyptian culture. Clay drum with a lizard or fish skin head. Probably comes from a vessel, like something to put water in or something like that, you know, pottery. And this is a modern drum. It's made of fiberglass with a plastic head. And you still see the same features of the big head, the bowl, and the foot. And so this drum is traditionally played in the lap, so we call it lap drum. And you put it across your lap, facing towards your dominant side. Elbow rests on the foot and wrist on the top, on the bowl. So it's quite comfortable to hold this way. And there's many techniques you can play on the Darbuka. Also, these are sometimes called doombeks. Doombek is just a kind of a Western word for the drum. And I think it's more onomatopoetic word, like we have doombek, doombek is like the sounds. Because one of the sounds that we learn is doom, doom. That's our low sound. So, so you know the more official, culturally correct word would be Darbuka. Sometimes it's also called dirbeki or tabla, which just means drum. So we're going to call it, what are we calling it? Darbuka. Darbuka. All right, so we have a doom sound, which is, it's like the open tone on the djembe or conga, but we're going to put our hand a little bit more on the drum, fingers flat all together, and we're going to play it this way. So it's kind of like the open tone, but we're really getting the head moving. So that's called doom. That's the low sound. The high sound, we have tak, which is the edge. So fingertips on the edge. That's the last pad of the fingers. So doom and tak. Okay, and then you can play pa. We were talking about your dog hitting the drum, but there's a sound called pa, and pa would just be kind of like a slap, like this. Pa. Sometimes we do cha. Now on this drum it's got a slippery head, so it's not going to be as loud, but cha would be like a brushing sound. All kinds of different sounds, but basically if you can do doom and tak or tek, and maybe pa. Pa is like a slap. It can be like that too. Muted tone though. Stay on the drum for pa. And then we can also do tak up on the top. It's like a twisting, flicking motion using our ring finger. Now I'm a very novice Darbuka player, but that's the basics. So basically, you can just hold it and play with one hand, doom and tak, and have fun with that. And if you want to try putting the other hand in, you can. But that'll get you started with Darbuka. And if you want, you can adapt it or hold it differently. You can put it between your legs. That's fine. Not as traditional, but you could. For making music, it's fine. Right? So you could also have somebody play it with little sticks, very tiny sticks, or little mallets or something. But that's Darbuka. Really, really great, wonderful drum. A lot of sound out of a little drum. Okay, so that's Darbuka. Now, related, we're going to go back to the family of West African instruments. So we had the djembe, and now this drum is called dundun or dunun. Either one, usually dundun, D-U-N-U-N. And the dundun is a bass drum. It's got two heads, carved out of a log again. It's played with a djembe in the djembe ensemble, West African drumming ensembles. This is the small dundun. They get very big, maybe this high, this big around. There's families of graduated bass drums. They all went to school, they all graduated. There's different sizes. This one is a small drum, so it's higher pitched, but often they're very low pitched. Really great for grounding and providing the feeling of the music where it's resonating and people can feel it as well as hear it. So it's nice. Also low frequency, they're great for supporting the music from below, literally, low pitch. As I mentioned, this is a higher pitched drum, and so sometimes I'll play these with my hand, which is not traditional. That would just be in a small ensemble. Traditionally, you'd play the dundun or dundun with a dundun stick, which is here, right by my foot. And you use a wooden stick. This is actually my signature dundun stick, but any large stick similar to this would work fine. So hold the stick like this, and I like to play the dundun with a little wrist twisting, almost like you're twisting a doorknob action, instead of this sort of action. But it's kind of a combination of the two, actually. So use a little bit of your fingers, keep it in the fulcrum here, between your thumb and your hand, kind of loose, and then you're just turning your wrist a little, and you may be using a little fingers, but it's kind of like you can just turn your wrist, keep it loose, and play the drum that way. And in a small room, of course, you don't need to use a lot of force. You'll get a lot of sound out of the dundun. By the way, the dundun and the djembe are outdoor instruments, as is the conga. Most of these drums are played outdoors, traditionally, so they're pretty loud when we bring them indoors, so it's just something to be aware of. So the dundun can be played that way. It can be played across. You can hold it and play it on your lap. It's a little more resonant. You can strap it on, wear a strap, and they are traditionally worn that way. Hang down here by your waist. Play it that way. They can be attached to one another. It's often the case where you have one dundun, big one, and then two small ones that are attached to it. So you have a set of three. So lots of different ways to play the dundun. And often we have a bell that's played with the dundun too, sometimes. It just depends on the application and the setting. So that's the dundun, play with the dundun stick. You can also use for the kind of setting we're in, which is a smaller group indoors, you could use a mallet, which I think is really nice. It gives it a more mellow sound, and it'll take some of the edge off, some of the volume off, give it a little more warmth. So we're going to move on to a couple more drums related to the dundun, and a drum that would play a similar musical role in a small ensemble would be a frame drum that's more like what we call a shaman drum or buffalo drum. And this drum is a synthetic drum. It's got a naga hide type material for the head, which is really nice for creating a low resonant tone. So this drum would actually be a nice instrument to ground a small group of musicians. And you use a mallet, and it sounds like this. And I really like to have this drum here, so I can hear the sound coming towards me. Now, later on, just experiment with this. Take the drum and you don't want to turn it so you are getting all the vibration off of it, and it's really a nice sound. Really, really warm. Or you could play it for a client this way. Make sure you let them know what's coming. Maybe gently work into it, because it's a lot of air that's coming off of the drum, especially off the back. So it's a really nice sound. You can use it, sort of it envelops the space. Very resonant. So you could use that for that's why they use this drum, for shamanic type drumming, or drumming where you might want to induce like a trance state. It's a very nice sound. You can also use this as a tonal ground for singing over, because it has a pitch. Right, something like that. You have your own accompaniment here. All right, another kind of frame drum, and frame drum family is usually they're single-headed, not always, but single-headed drums where the head is much bigger than the shell. Another frame drum. I've got a set of drums here. These are called rainbow hand drums. These are also frame drums, and they come in all sizes. So this is a very small one. And we go all the way from 8 to, this set has 16 inches. So this would be a typical, what we call just frame drum or tar drum. The tar is just a simple drum like this, one hoop with a head, and sometimes they have notches cut here so you can hold it a little bit more easily. Sometimes there's a hole here you can put your thumb through, it just depends on the manufacturer. But basically, to hold the frame drum, you're going to place your hand inside, your thumb inside, and your fingers in front. You can put your index finger only, or your index and middle finger to support it, and then just you lean it forward a little so that it's kind of binding behind your thumb. See, so if I hold it here, it's kind of wobbly, but if I tip it, now it's stable because I've got resistance down here. Does that make sense? So you can hold it a little bit forward, and then from here, now I've got my holding hand and I have a playing hand, the one hand free, so now I can do my tones with my other hand. And there's a lot of ways to play the frame drum, but I'll just give you a couple tones. Doom on this drum is often in this style played with the thumb, like a flicking of the thumb where you hit on the side of your thumb with a rotation movement. So you kind of throw your thumb at the drum into the drum head on the side. That would be doom on the frame drum. So that's our low tone. And then tak would be ring finger towards the edge. You could also use your index finger. It doesn't matter, whatever you're comfortable with. So my ring finger striking the drum near the edge is tak, high pitched. We go from there and playing dooms down or taks down here. So you have okay, really with a couple techniques. I mean, a really nice sound, right? Low and high. That's all you need. A couple different notes. Same thing applies. You can do the pa or cha. Rubbing, brushing, fingertips, kind of a slap, catch. You can play your whole hand if you want, but those are the basic techniques for frame drum. Now the last drum I have here, we're going to look at right now, there's so many instruments, but these are some of the basic ones that you could use in community drumming settings, is the cajon. And I really like the cajon. I use the cajon all the time in my work in music therapy. And I just really love it. So the cajon is a box, wooden box. And you see it's got a hole here, so sound hole, resonance, so that the bass tones can be formed and come out. This particular model has two playing surfaces. The head is the side of the box. The wood on the playing surfaces is thin. It's thin plywood. And it's very resonant. So we've got a bass tone. This side has snares. So it's got a little bit of snare sound on the high end. But that's where you play it. And then of course it's a seat. So you can sit on it. And I like to tip the drum back a little because it just makes the head a little more accessible to me. That's not necessarily traditional, but I'd rather tip the drum back a little instead of lean over a little bit because I like to not put a lot of strain on my low back. But you have to find a way that works for you. You don't want to ever be, using a lot of muscle on your low back to play any instrument. So you just have to find a way to sort of position yourself so you're not straining. But that could be leaning a certain way or tipping the drum back a little maybe. Either way, but traditionally it's just flat on the ground. And we have two basic tones. Again, we've got the bass tone, which is with our hand just inside the top of the head. Here. There's no reason to reach way down here. You don't have to go to the middle or anything like that. It's just right in the upper quadrant here. Both hands, either one. Just, and again, I'm very relaxed. Hand is just basically flat, and it's just relaxed. It's not, I'm not straining, I'm not trying to just use my palm. You know, sometimes when people say you hit it with your palm, and they say, oh, I can't hit it with my fingers. I say, no, you can hit it with your palm and your fingers. It's just mostly palm. Here. And then the high tone is just up on the edge. Now different players have different techniques, but basically you just want to hit it up in this very edge corner. So we've got low and high. And you play all kinds of beats and everything. It's really nice. As I mentioned, this drum also has the non-snared head. Now this sound would be what we think of more as the Peruvian style. Peruvian cajones don't have the snares. The other side, which would be the flamenco Spanish style, which is going to have the snares. So so a really great instrument, right? And we saw earlier, just in a small group, it's very effective for playing, grounding, providing the bass, but then I can go to the high sounds if I want to, you know, remove myself from that much presence, and I can do matching. I can kind of emulate a lot of different kinds of drums and instruments with this. So it helps me connect with different people. If somebody's playing a rattle or a shaker, I can kind of get that, you know, that quality and sort of match them. So really nice instrument.